Nigeria's local currency, the Naira, has in the last few days appreciated against the dollar, gaining 22.13%. That's about 290 Naira, as the dollar fell to 1,020 Naira on Friday from the peak of 1,310 Naira on Thursday last week on the black market. Now, street traders are already buying dollars at the rate of 950, 970 Naira at the weekend, as against the 1,130 Naira bought on Thursday. And speculators who have been hoarding dollars for arbitrage are now offloading the same to avoid losing money. Furthermore, there has been a steady rise in foreign exchange reserves in the last 1 month. The Naira strengthened against the dollar, and the Central Bank of Nigeria has cleared part of the FX backlog, a development seen to restore confidence in the economy. Now, Nigeria's external reserves rose by 0.51% to $33.39 billion at the end of October, compared to $33.22 billion recorded at the beginning of the month, and that's according to the Apex Bank of Nigeria. So, to further shed more light on this, joining me from Lagos is Oladipo Ajayi, is the head fixed income and FX, Chapel Hill Denham Securities. Thank you so much, Oladipo, for joining us to discuss this.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you around. Now, let's begin with the Forex backlog, which the government has been paying. So what more do we need to know about this? What is the percentage? What percentage has been paid so far? And is it enough to sustain the current gains?
Well, as we speak currently, the central bank, they are still on the move around that. Based on the reports of what we have, they've only been able to attend to the key international banks, Stanbic, Standard, and Citibank, and coupled with some other smaller banks. But we noticed that they've not actually gotten to the stage of actually attending to the needs of the tier one bank like Access, Zenith, GT, First Bank, and UBA.
Now, the Naira has actually strengthened to about 970 Naira to a dollar on the parallel markets, and that's quite faster than what a lot of people had expected. Were you also expecting that to happen from the point that the CBN announced that it was going to start offsetting the backlogs, and of course it did so? Were you anticipatory that that would happen, and how much do we expect the Naira to gain? What do you think will be the fair value of the Naira?
Yeah, for me, and I've been saying it severally, even when I have the opportunity to say it on air, that holding the dollars at that level is not a very good one. And I also lend credence from what happened in 2017 and how in January 2017, the central bank came out to say that they have a framework. And by May, we saw that huge drop in the value of dollars from about 500 to around 360 Naira to a dollar. And in the same vein, when the new CBN governor was actually appointed, one of the things mentioned recently was that they are currently working on a framework. And that sounds very familiar to me, because when you hear such information, it tells you that there's something in the offering of the Apex Bank. And when they actually release information of removing including the 43 line item in the willing buyer, willing seller window, it makes a lot of sense to me, because it simply means that they are trying to actually reduce the level of pressure that we are currently seeing on the parallel market. And after that, they came out with OMO auctions, and just last week we saw the CBN actually auctioning over 500 billion worth of OMO bills in the market. And not only about the fact that they are auctioning, the rate at which they're actually clearing some of those bills were alarming. And you can see a 1-year paper now currently at north of 21%. And aside that, also, we've seen the level of improvement in pressure to reserve, and coupled with the fact that they are now trying to meet some of the obligations, forward obligation for banks. So when you sum all this together, it points out to the fact that in no time, Naira will start appreciating in the market. And for me, I don't think we have gotten to a pause on that. I still feel that Naira will still trade around 800 Naira levels.
Of course, you saying that you are sure that this will not be the end, but then there's more that needs to be done. Now, what are the things that you would propose that the government should do? To even start with, are there other actions that have grown the optimism aside what you have mentioned in terms of the appreciation of the Naira? And what are the other areas that you feel the government should equally look into in terms of policy measures being enacted to ensure that this sentiment, or gain as it is sustained? And the reason I'm asking this is because you would agree with me that the policies that came on board before now affected the Naira adversely until they now started coming up with these policies, and of course with the need to clear the backlogs. So we wouldn't want to have another scenario of policy misses that would negatively affect the Naira. So I'd like you to just shed more light on that, and of course what areas you think the government should also be concentrating on.
Yeah, firstly, let me start from the policy that was actually enacted in June. I will say categorically that the policy was wrong. And maybe it was ill-timed. Of course, I will agree to a great extent with that because harmonizing the exchange window is not a negative thing. But the only thing is that we did not actually check in-house to see whether we have the capacity as at that particular point in time. And if not for the release of report by JP Morgan that actually further show light to the valuation of what we are currently having in the reserve, and coupled with the fact that we have a lot of exuberances on that reserve, I'm sure we wouldn't have gotten to the level where we were now. And going back to what do I think we need to do? Right, I feel that we're already on the right path, and so what we need to continue to do is to continue to mop up liquidity in the system. And what that would do is that will create a better return on investment for investor. And a lot of people would rather want to actually invest their fund in a risk-free investment that will give them close to a 20% return than want to actually speculate on Naira as we speak now. And also, the same thing, the governments also need to actually work with central bank in this regard. They need to ensure that the sanity currently in Niger Delta continues, and we continue to improve our oil production. Of course, we've heard the chairman of NNPC come out several to say that there has been improvement in production in that area. We need to capitalize on our quota. We need to ensure that we are meeting up with the allocations that have been given to us by OPEC. What this will do is that it will further help us increase the capacity of the central bank to actually to be able to meet their FX obligation, and also to be able to actually clear some of these outstanding forward and swap obligations on the part of the central bank. And at the same time, also, we also feel that the central bank also needs to actually create other windows aside the willing buyer and willing seller window, because the willing buyer and willing seller window will only be able to meet some of the obligations of manufacturers and not the invisibles. There are people that want to pay school fees, there are people that want to actually go on medical tourism. And I don't think whatever is done in that window will cater for people like that, because when banks actually allocate, they will actually want to prioritize and manufacturers than all other these small demands. So that these demands will not filter into the parallel market and continue to put pressure on the parallel market. The central bank also needs to actually create a window for those demands so that they can be met, and there will not be reasons for them to actually further go back to the parallel market and continue to put pressure on that market.
Yes, that actually talks about what the government had been saying right from time up to now, talking about speculative activities and pressures on the Naira that has made it depreciate to the point that it did before it started appreciating. Now, talking about speculative activities, when you look at the gains currently being experienced, it sort of make true the claim that speculators were holding sway in the market. I don't know if you agree with that. But then some analysts have also been talking about the need to address the demand side of Forex, the Forex scarcity, which has also in a way affected the Naira, and of course businesses being done within and outside of the country. So what are your thoughts on this and the excuse the government gave earlier?
Yeah, this is true because whatever demand we are seeing in the parallel market, they are both original demand and speculative demand. We see most of and if you remember what I was speaking earlier, and I said that the first thing that the central bank did was to remove the 43 line items from that market and include them in the official market. Because some of these people are those that are actually putting pressure also in the parallel market, because the activity is not actually banned, but what the central bank only did is that the restriction on utilizing the central bank FX to actually import some of those things into the country. But what the central bank has done is to actually include them in the willing buyer and willing seller window. And what that would mean is that reduce the pressure on that parallel market. And at the same time, we need to now also look at some other genuine demand that actually been going into the market. The central bank also needs to actually create an enabling environment where some of this demand can actually find its way back into the banking system, and those demands are actually being met in the banking system rather than going out into the unofficial market to actually meet some of those obligations. I feel that the first thing that central bank also needs to do is to improve its FS generating capacity, and actually so that if that is done, they will have the capacity to actually meet the demand that actually are littering around the markets.
Now, let's talk about the possibility of the Nigerian government generating more FX, more foreign exchange. Now, there are fears in some quarters that the government borrowed and will continue to borrow without letting Nigerians actually know the truth. Now, does this bother you in any way, seeing that the finance minister, that is Wale Edun, already hinted that Nigeria is expecting as much as $10 billion in new foreign currency inflows, plus, of course, the news about securitizing NLNG dividends. So they are wondering, where would that forex inflow come from if the government is actually coy? Where would the $10 billion come from when we are not even sure about our production and export capacity?
So if we look at it critically, the 10 billion expected, we're actually currently expecting about 3 billion from Afreximbank, and that is almost tidied up already. And also coupled with what you just mentioned, we have the 7 billion dividend securitization from NLNG dividend securitization. And the feelers in the market is that the fund is coming from Stanchart, and but it will be securitized with the future cash flow dividend payment that Nigeria is expecting as an investor in NLNG. For me, what we are just trying to do is that because at this particular point in time, we need FX to actually stabilize the markets. And if you look at the report released by JP Morgan, they mentioned that Nigeria market is fully open, but we just need to sort the issue of FX as quickly as we can. When you look at they mentioned Ajayi present one of the highest carriage trade opportunity, and also one of the highest risk reward markets in the emerging market and frontier market space. And when you look all these things together, it makes sense that it means that we are ready for business, but the only hindering thing is for us to stabilize the FX market. And for you to stabilize the FX market, we need to actually get FX inflow. And the only way we can get FX inflow is be able to actually think outside the box. And what they've done in the angle of securitizing the NLNG dividends is to actually bring your future expected cash flow into now. So it simply means that, of course, we are expecting NLNG to declare dividend and pay us on an annual basis. But can we raise that money now for utilization to stabilize the currency? Why the debt obligation will be serviced by the future cash flow that comes from the investment in LNG. It makes a lot of sense, and to me, it's not totally like saying borrow. It's like you bringing your earning to your future earning into today, and it's one of the ways to actually solve the current problem that we have in the country. And also, when you look at the issue of the deal with Afrexim, it's also another smart way of not directly going to Eurobond market to actually raise funds, but also another way to actually hedge yourself, and at the same time use your future products to actually get current cash flow to actually stabilize the market. And even with the news of some of this inflow coming into the market, we have seen normalcy actually returning to the markets. And with that will actually give confidence to most of the foreign investors that have been waiting at the doorstep to actually step into our markets and bring in flow, which will further stabilize the Naira performance in the markets.
Now, even as we continue to see and hope for more stability in the FX market, we are also seeing a steady rise in foreign exchange reserves, as we're seeing in the CBN reports for the last month. Now, Nigeria's external reserves rose by 0.51% to $33.39 billion compared to $33.22 billion that was recorded in October. Now, how significant is this for Nigeria, its finance, its portfolio, and its economy? And what would you attribute this to?
Yeah, the cash flow that the improvement or the improvement in the accretion to reserve could be attributed to the improvement. And like I mentioned, that the sanity is already returning to the Niger Delta zone, where we actually explore oil and that is actually exported. And in as much that there's calmness in that region, we tend to actually see improvement in the reserve. It simply means that there's huge correlation between sanity in that region and reserve, and that's exactly what we are seeing now. It simply means that we are currently improving our supply into the market, and it also means that the statement by the Ajayi that we are being that our production has increased. It means that it's true because we're already seeing the impact in the reserve. Like I mentioned, we also need to actually consolidate on the win by actually ensuring that we are meeting the quota actually given to us by OPEC. In a long time, we've been producing far below our quota. There's a time that we are producing close to about 500,000 barrels on a daily basis below our quota. And what that simply means that we have been leaving a lot of money on the table for a long time. So in such a time like this, we need to actually find a way to actually ramp up our production in that segment of the market so as to actually improve our FS generating capacity. And I think that's exactly what we are seeing, but we just need to do more so as to, because what we are seeing is marginal. And I feel that we can do more to ensure that it's sizable enough to actually also reduce the burden, the demand burden that we are currently having in the FX market.
Okay, Oladipo, we've talked too much about the internal metrics and the shocks and the things that need to be done. But then let's look outside the Nigerian economic ecosystem and look further. Now, are there global economic conditions or trends that you feel might influence the value of projections and, of course, the stabilization efforts of the Nigerian Naira? Are there things that you think the Nigerian economy, the Nigerian government rather, and the CBN should be wary of and should be thinking ahead to, of course, try to stop in order not to get the country receding or retrogressing on the policies and achievements it has recorded so far?
Yeah, at any point in time, the world is now a global village. It means that there's contagion effect where whatever things happen in another country can one way or the other actually affect the happening in your country. We've seen what's currently happening in the Middle East, the Palestine and Israel crisis, and what that could mean to the oil price if further escalates beyond this level. For that, in that regard, that could be a plus to Nigeria because it means that we'll likely see oil price actually go beyond $100 to a barrel. But how much are we prepared to actually take such advantage when it actually comes to our table? And aside
okay,
that,
Oladipo, sorry to cut in. I'd like you to just hold your thoughts there as you conclude on your summation for a few seconds. We'll be back to continue what you've been saying. Just stay with us. Oh, you're watching Business Edge, and we have been talking about the appreciation of the Nigerian Naira. And of course, we've been engaging Oladipo Ajayi. So, Oladipo, thank you so much for your patience. I'd like you to just conclude on this, on what the Nigerian government needs to do to strengthen the fabrics and the policies that has come on board, most especially against external shocks, against global shocks.
So, like I was saying, I mentioned the issue of Israel and Palestine and the readiness of the government to take an advantage of if anything actually erupt beyond expected in that region. And also, we shouldn't also forget that the crisis between Ukraine and Russia is still very much there. Although we found out that the Israel-Palestine issue is already overshadowing the real crisis that's from Russia and Ukraine. And for us, I feel that the government needs to actually keep a tab of what is happening in this region and be able to actually think ahead of time to see how much they can actually be prepared around this. Another thing also we also need to do is that Nigeria government should also be more fiscal responsible. It's not a time for us to throw caution to the winds, and it is a time for us to be more disciplined with our spending as a nation. It's a time where we're actually trying to actually fix the pieces and actually grow back the economy and also bring sanity to the country. And it's also a time that we are trying to actually restore the confidence in global international investors. So it's such a time.
Oh, Oladipo. Oh, I think we just
to be careless way.
Okay.
So it's not a time that we need to be careless with handling both the fiscal and monetary policies in the country. And I also feel, finally, the monetary policy guys and the fiscal body guys must ensure there's huge handshake between their policies so that we can have a positive result in the implementation.
Of course, a lot of things are at stake right now, most especially for the leadership of Olayemi Cardoso, who is the CBN governor, and we hope that they will be able to the letter, bring these policies into full implementation. Oladipo Ajayi, head fixed income and FX, Chapel Hill, Denham Securities. Thank you so much for your time on the show.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.